A law is a rule that is created and enforced by government. In the United States, we are all affected by laws that protect our individual rights and freedoms. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the amendments added over the years provide laws that prevent the government from taking away your freedom of speech, that ensure freedom of religion, and that protect the press from government censorship. Most laws come from Congress and state legislatures. We also obey laws based on judges' decisions or created by government agencies that spell out laws in detail. Local governments enact laws called ordinances. A good example of an ordinance is a curfew that sets a time when everyone under a certain age must be off the streets. Laws against excessive noise and littering are also examples of local ordinances. Without laws, there would be no way to protect the safety, property, and individual rights of citizens. Imagine if there were no traffic laws, like those requiring us to stop at stop signs and red traffic signals, or if there were no speed limits. Or if anyone, no matter the age, could operate a motor vehicle. Traffic laws and many other laws were passed to establish and maintain order and to set standards or expectations for people's actions in our society. Other laws also provide for our safety. You, for example, are protected by laws that require your parents or guardians to feed and clothe you, by laws that dictate safety standards for the vehicle you ride in, and by laws that protect you from physical assault or violence. The air you breathe is protected by environmental laws, which also protect your quality of life by regulating the destruction of forests and wetlands. Laws also protect endangered wildlife and their habitats. The water you drink is protected by environmental laws that require water sources to be tested continually to make sure they are safe. And you can rely on laws to protect the food you eat. Every grocery store and restaurant must follow laws for safe food storage and cleanliness, or face the possibility of being fined or even closed down. Laws also require every child to attend school, and further require every school to be open a specific number of days. If you live in an area where you have to make up a snow day, it's because the law requires it. Even your property is protected by laws. Stealing or damaging property is a crime. But it's not just physical property that is protected. There are also laws that protect copyrights and other intellectual property. Without them, the people who design, invent, and produce new technologies and creative works, including the music you listen to, might not be compensated for their efforts. If not for these laws, many new songs, movies, and other creative works might not happen. The Internet presents a unique situation regarding the violation of copyright laws and their interpretations, and there will be much discussion of the issue for years to come. One early attempt to enforce copyright laws in cyberspace occurred when the Recording Industry of America sued an initial 261 music fans for sharing digital song files over the Internet. Many people were surprised. They hadn't realized that downloading music from the Internet violates the same laws that would be broken if they had copied and shared books. Criminal law and the criminal justice system enforce standards of conduct that protect individuals while maintaining the well-being of a community. Someone who transports a stolen car across state lines is committing a federal crime. In addition, each state generates its own criminal laws and defines what kind of conduct is criminal. States also establish penalties for such conduct. But federal courts must hear and decide cases that involve constitutional issues, such as civil rights or other offenses against federal law. Besides criminal law, there is civil law. Civil law asks the courts to decide when one person claims that another has injured his or her person, property, or reputation. Civil suits can also occur when one party charges another with failure to carry out a valid legal obligation, like a business contract or marriage contract. Divorce is an example of a civil law. Contract and business laws, Corporate laws, inheritance laws, and property laws are also examples of civil law. It may seem that everywhere you turn there's a law, but without them it would be impossible to keep order, protect public safety, protect property, promote the common good, and protect individual freedoms. What are some additional laws that affect your everyday life? Prior to the Industrial Revolution, most children, if they worked at all, helped their parents as farm labor by working in their shop or at another business. The long summer vacations that many students still enjoy were originally granted because parents needed their children's help on the farm during the busy growing and harvesting seasons. Many school districts have switched to alternative school calendars that shorten the summer recess because this original purpose for an extended summer vacation no longer exists. During the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, something very different happened. Children were exploited in factories, in mines, and in other workplaces where cheap labor was needed. Great numbers of children were forced to work long hours in conditions that were often filthy and even dangerous. Novels by Charles Dickens give us a look into the lives of children during this period in England, and conditions were not much better in the United States. At one Pennsylvania coal mining company, for example, 11-year-old boys worked 10 to 12 hours a day in coal dust that was so dense that at times it obscured their view while a boss stood watch, prodding and kicking them if they didn't obey. In the spinning room of a mill in Massachusetts, an 11-year-old girl reported that some of the children working there were so little they had to stand on boxes to wrap thread onto bobbins. In Maryland, 2 young girls ages 7 and 9 picked berries in a field from 4:30 a.m. until sunset. The first laws against child labor in the United States were passed in the 19th century, but they were often not enforced. In fact, federal laws prohibiting child labor were twice struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court, once in 1918 and again in 1922. It wasn't until the 1938 Fair Labor Standards Act that both federal and state officials actually prohibited the employment of children under the age of 16 during school hours. Today, teens over 16 work at a variety of jobs, and employers are required to pay them the minimum wage as determined by the federal government. There is also a training or youth wage of $4.25 per hour that is legal for employees under the age of 20 during the first 90 days of employment. But once a young person turns 20 or has worked at a job for 90 days, he or she must be paid at least the national minimum wage. There are exceptions. Children under 16 may still work in businesses owned by their parents, and they may work in the entertainment industry. The Federal Department of Labor has regulated that minors employed as actors or performers in motion pictures, theatrical productions, or radio or television productions are exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act.
You be on the line, you be downstage of the line, but open so that everybody can see, okay? And you have to show me the cradle, and you have to leave space exactly.
But each state defines the requirements for children who work in the entertainment profession. Many states require a work permit, permission from a principal or superintendent based on academic performance, as well as signed contracts from their parents or guardians. Some states have additional provisions which must be met. In Indiana, for example, children under 16 can work in the entertainment industry. In Massachusetts, minors under 16 may make stage appearances in a theater, but cannot perform more than 2 shows per day or more than 8 a week without special permission from the Attorney General. In California, home of the film industry, requirements can be extensive. child performers must have a work permit, but cannot work more than 5 consecutive days.
Quiet everywhere in the studio, guys.
They can be excused for up to 5 absences, and schools may allow them to make up missed assignments and tests. Of course, many child performers are tutored during the workday on the set. Despite such laws, problems with child labor continue to be an issue in many countries around the world. Many children under the age of 16 are still required to work, and often in factories that are supplying products to America. For the future, people across the globe look to the days when working long hours in unhealthy and unsafe conditions are over for children and adults everywhere. What are some reasons employers might be tempted to hire children? What are some reasons it's not a good idea? The criminal justice system in the United States is the financial responsibility of the Department of Justice. This graph shows how the department's budget has steadily increased over a 10-year period, from $13.9 billion in 1995 to its peak of $27.9 billion in 2002. In 2003, some of the Justice Department's roles were transferred to the new Department of Homeland Security, along with some of the budget. But you can see that in 2004, the Justice Department's budget increased again. At $25 billion, the budget for the Department of Justice is well below the $500 billion budget of the Department of Health. Why might this be so?